Boker Tov, good morning. Just so glad to have the chance to get together again today. Good to see everyone coming in. Please feel free to greet each other. It's always a pleasure just even to see your names come up on this stream, on this opportunity for us to be together, because it really just reminds us of the power of community. Boker Tov, good morning from Temple Sinai. It is just a wonderful opportunity on this beautiful, beautiful Thursday morning for us to be together and say, wow, how lucky are we? How lucky are we to have each other, to have the opportunity to connect, to reflect, and to remember, even through technology, during a time when otherwise we would be so very much on our own. So I really appreciate each and every one of you being here and having the privilege of sharing this time with you each day. Thursday, of course, is a Torah reading day, and so it makes it even more special for us to have the chance to look a little bit about something very significant that we find in our Parsha this week. But we have a number of steps to go through this morning, really just to help us forward. And so I'm excited for us to have the chance to do that. So let's take a moment here together and let's join in some of our prayers. Let's today say Asher Yetzel in Hebrew and English, this prayer that in so many different Jewish intentions is our opportunity to say thank you for the elements of our body that work. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, uvara vo nekavim nekavim, chalulim chalulim, galui v'yadua lifnei chisei chodecha, she'im yipateach echad mehem, o yisatem echad mehem, yefshar litkayem v'lamod lefanecha, Baruch atah Adonai rofei chol basar, umafli lasot. Blessed eternal God, creator of the universe, you have fashioned our bodies with wisdom, creating within us a finely balanced network. To stand before you in prayer is itself a fragile miracle. Eternal God, we praise you as the healer of body and spirit. The soul that you have given me, O God, is a pure one. You have created and formed it, breathed it into me, and within me you sustain it. So long as my soul is within me, I will give thanks to you, eternal my God and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. We praise you, eternal God, in whose hand is the power of all life and the spirit of all flesh. Think, what might you learn today? Let's join together in this bracha, which is really a celebration of the power and responsibility of learning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, v'arevna Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratcha b'finu v'lefi amcha beit Yisrael, v'niyeh anachnu v'tzetzaenu v'tzetzei amcha beit Yisrael, kulanu yodei shemecha, v'lomdei Toratecha lishma, Baruch atah Adonai hamlamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. And here's some things we might do that we might actually, because learning doesn't come from words and texts alone, it comes from doing. So here's some doing in which we might find growth and new insights today. These are the obligations whose value cannot be measured. They nourish us in this world and help us to create the world to come. Kibud av va'em, to honor fathers and mothers. Ugmilut chasadim, to perform acts of love and kindness. Ashkamat bet midrash shacharit v'arvit, to attend the house of study morning and evening. Bachnasat ochim, to welcome the stranger. Uvikuch cholim, to visit the sick. Bachnasat kala, to provide for brides and grooms. Ulevayat hamet, to keep faith with the dead. V'yun tefillah, to pray with sincerity. Ava'at shalom ben adam lachavero, to make peace when there is strife. The Talmud Torah keneged kulam, and the study of Torah is equal to them all. Today feels like a good day to recite a psalm, and so in preparation for that and acknowledging these psalms of praise, let's join together today in Hebrew on the gray side in the words of Baruch Shema. Baruch she'amar vayah ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch oseh v'reshit, Baruch omer v'yoseh, Baruch gozer u'mkayem. Baruch morachem al ha'aretz, Baruch morachem al habriot. Baruch mishalem sachar tov le'reach, Baruch chai la'ad v'kayem la'netzach, Baruch podeh u'matzil, Baruch shemo. בשפחות ובזמרות נגדלך ונשבחך ונפארך ונזכיר שמך ונמליכך מלכנו אלוהינו יחיד חיי העולמים מלך משובח ומפואר עד היד שמו הגדול ברוך אתה אדוני מלך מולל ותשבחות. And today, let's join in Psalm 121, which we haven't in some time, but we are, of course, always on a journey. And having now taken a curve and passed Tisha B'Av, and yesterday being Tu B'Av, a day where we celebrate goodness and love, we are now on our journey up to Yamim Noraim, to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So in thinking of that series of weeks of journey on which we are on together, let's join in Psalm 121 in English. I will look only upward, past the mountains, for my help comes from the one beyond. My help comes from the eternal, maker of heaven and earth. Ever alert, your guardian will never allow your foot to stumble. The guardian of Israel never rests, never sleeps. The eternal will watch over you as a shadow cast by your right hand. You will not be overcome by the sun nor abandoned by the moon. The eternal will guard you from all evil, watching over you. The eternal will guard you as you set out and as you return from this very moment until the end of time. And these words of Shema are not only words of prayer and unity, but words of protection as well, as our people in times where they feel threatened, or not just feel, but have been threatened, have turned to these words for strength and for giving them the ability to accept the blessings and, unfortunately, the difficulties that arise in different moments in history. We need strength in doing that as well as we turn to these powerful words together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'avta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha. Vayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam. V'shivtecha bebetecha v'lechtecha v'derech v'shochbecha uvkumecha. V'kshavtam la'ot al yadecha vayu letotafot ben enecha. V'chtavtam al mezuzot betecha uv'ish'arecha. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם. ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בתיר תכלת. היה לכם לציצית וראיתם אותו. וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם. ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי. והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם. It really is a source of strength to have a chance to turn to traditional words and to join in them together. And we're going to focus in a moment on our parashah for this week. But before we do, we want to make sure that we have our opportunity just to have our personal character reflections as well from Cheshbon HaNefesh, from Rabbi Menachem Mendel Levine of Satana. And so please, before we turn to the parashah for today, please feel free to join in these two, reminding us of two challenging aspects of personal growth that we have an opportunity to focus on this week. Humility. Keep silent in order to learn from all those around you, acknowledging what is lacking in you and seeking to fix it. This way, you will learn to turn your mind away from your strengths or from the defects of others. Patience. When something bad happens to you that you could not have avoided by being careful, don't make it even worse through pointless sorrow. Good reminders for us to have this morning. And so this morning, as we turn to our parasha, we turn to a part of this week's parasha, Ekev, that we don't read every week. Of course, historically, we know that Shema has had 3 different paragraphs. The first paragraph being Shema and Ve'ahavta through Uvi Shalecha, through that first paragraph that we joined in, that we just recited together, is the first element of the Shema. And the last element of the Shema, the Vayomel, that talks about the exodus from Egypt and about the fringes and the commandments, that is the last paragraph. But in many countings, it is the third. The second paragraph, known by its opening words, V'hayim Shamoa, comes from chapter 11 of the book of Deuteronomy, comes from this week's parasha, and is one that in our Kehillah and throughout the Reform world, with the exception of it being offered as an option in the Israeli Reform Movement's prayer book and some international Reform prayer books, we do not recite this middle paragraph. It's actually, in my mind, a reflection of a traditional statement that I want to mention, and then we'll look at the words themselves. Torah is very central and grounding to the Jewish people. The Torah is ancient and it does not change. And so that means some parts of it are more challenging than others. And we wrestle to take ancient words of Torah that seem to connect, that had to connect for Jews thousands of years ago to their social context, and to connect them to our own. It's a wonderful and meaningful interpretive challenge. And yet there is a principle that says, "Ein mikra yotze midei pshuto," that a mikra, a text from the written tradition, something to be recited aloud, literally, never actually loses its simple, plain meaning. And because that's the case, because we can't read words, or shouldn't maybe read words, and ignore their basic meaning, that's the main reason why we don't find them in our Shema. So let's look at them here. Here they are from this week's parasha, chapter 11. Beginning with verse 13, and let's read them through together in English. If then you obey the commandments that I command you this day, loving the eternal your God and serving God with all your heart and soul, I will grant rain for your land in season, the early and the late. You shall gather in new grain, wine, and oil. I will also provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and thus shall you eat your fill. Take care not to be lured away to serve other gods and bow to them. For the Eternal's anger will flare up against you, and God will shut up the skies so that there will be no rain. The ground will not yield its produce, and you will soon perish from the good land that the Eternal is assigning to you. Therefore, impress these my words upon your very heart. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Let them be as a symbol on your forehead, and teach them to your children, reciting them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up, and inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, to the end that you and your children may endure in the land that the Eternal swore to your ancestors, to your fathers, to assign to them as long as there is heaven over the earth. So these words, as you can tell, listening to them, contain many of the same principles and ideas as the Ve'ahavta, which are more than acceptable and important, such as teaching them to our children and binding them as a sign, wearing our commitment to Torah, whether we do so through actions in our life or through wearing tefillin, or hopefully through both. But at the beginning of the parasha, it says something in simple words that we can interpret around, but we've chosen not to. And that is, it's an if-then approach. It says, if you obey the commandments, then you will have what you need. And quite clearly, as it continues, as you saw, that if you don't obey the commandments, then God will not provide you with your basic needs. This theology that we find in the book of Deuteronomy, that we find in so many other places in the Tanakh, in our Bible, is one of many different Jewish theologies, and one that even in ancient times, I believe that many found troubling. The book of Job, as I was taught, is a book that rejects the idea that you can, in fact, guess whether someone is a good person by the circumstances of their life. Our circumstances of our life are ours, and our goodness and growth and contribution to the world, while some of it affects others, is eventually between us and God. And God understands who we are. But we cannot look at another and say, aha, look what happened to her. Look what's going on with him. I bet that means this. And while these words that are essentially the core reality of our experience of reading them is to imply that there should be, is in the real world, a connection between what people do and the results they receive here in this world. In Tractate Moed Katan, I taught this just recently on Shabbat, Tractate Moed Katan, page 28, it says that when it comes to what happens, how long we live, by our material circumstances, by what goes on with our children, this matter in life, lo bizchuta talia ela b'mazla talia, that it doesn't rely on, we don't earn it, but rather it relies on our luck, that it is more random, or at least that it's not part of some calculus that we can make. And because these words, while they say other beautiful things, although those are included in other words that we continue to recite, seem to imply that that calculus, that we can interpret that when bad things happen, it means they're happening to bad people, is the main reason why these words are not included in our version of the Shema. It doesn't mean in any way that our actions or our choices don't have consequences for us or for the Jewish people. Of course they do. But the idea that there is this tit-for-tat response by God and that we might be able to interpret the goodness of others through them, it's that danger and that negativity that results in the choice historically in the Reform movement and at Temple Sinai for us to continue to leave out that paragraph from our reciting of the Shema. We really want our opportunities for strength, for prayer to be strengthening. They should challenge us, but they have to challenge us in a way that we can take in and we can manage. We're really hopeful at a time like this that those who take on challenges for us can do so in a manageable way, and that the really powerful challenges of illness and isolation are manageable for those who are living through them most intensely at this time. And so with them in our minds, in addition to any whom you might add in the chat, to specially include them in our prayers, although I, in my heart, include all those members of our congregation in need of healing in this prayer, especially them, we turn to these words of Refuah. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak V'Yakov Imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah V'Rachel Lo Yiraped Kol Makutenu יהי רצון מלפניך אדוני אלוהינו, וחבימם ולרפאותם, ישלחנו מהרה רפואה שלמה ועטרת שלום, ונאמר, Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless and heal all who suffer. May it be the divine will to provide healing and strength. Reveal to us the holiness of life, the wholeness of shalom, and together we say. And so now, having done that, we now turn to our opportunity to remember. Having connected, it's now time for us to honor those who died in recent days and weeks in the past 30 days, those who died of this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. During the period of Shloshim, we extend our condolences to the families of Alan Fridson, Rose Rich, Benji Fruitman, Judy Gabai, Helene Frankie Springer, Margot Grossbane, Rabbi Mark Shapiro, Jan Siegel, Edith Grossman. And on your site this Shabbat, on the anniversaries of their deaths, we remember Lily Albert, Celia Bluestein, Nathan Bluestein, Meyer Chertkov, Sylvia Chris, Hyman Edelist, Morris Goldberg, Mira Hirsch, Ann Eichmann, Jacob Kopstick, David Stephen Kotler, Henry Ritchie, Morris Silverberg, Ida Snitman. Zichronam Levracha, may their memories be a blessing to us, along with any of their names. I feel like there's one name I may have missed, and I apologize if that's the case. And now as we turn to this time of memory, we turn to words sanctified by memory, words glorified by hope in the Kaddish Yatom. Yitgadal v'yitkadosh Shemeh Rabba, ve'alma divrach Yeruteh ve'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayeh dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi Shemeh Rabba mevarach le'alam ul'almei almaya. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו אלא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה ואמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and bring comfort and strength to all who remember. And together we say, Amen. This morning we acknowledge a contribution to the Ellie Cooper Memorial Fund that has been made observing the Yortzeit for Celia Bluestein and Nathan Bluestein. Bluestein and Cooper families have made that memorial donation. Well, may this day of connection and memory and strength and learning be a wonderful one, and looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Boker Tov, make it a wonderful day.